right. I'm Karen Schollmeyer, and Steve asked us to talk for 8 to 10 minutes, which kind of made me panic because I've never given a talk that was that length before. So I was trying to think of what I could really convey in a short amount of time about field schools. And I thought back to when I was in graduate school, and I had been teaching field schools for a while already, and I was teaching field schools that weren't actually related to my dissertation, and everybody kept asking me, like, why are you doing this instead of doing your dissertation work exclusively? And I said I'd really like teaching field schools. So I wanted to talk a little bit about why that is and why I'm still doing it, however many, many years later, and why I like doing it here especially. And I'm going to talk about 3 reasons that I really love to do this. One is that we're training the future, basically. We're training a diverse group of archaeologists who are going to be doing this long after I'm gone and who are really going to shape the way that our discipline goes into the future. I like doing this because not only am I teaching the next generation, but we're doing research together. So we're really learning things together about the past that I think can benefit everybody. And I like doing this because those things work together to make the future better, not just for archaeology, but sometimes I think for everybody really, at least a little bit as well. When the world gets a little bit heavy, I think about some of the stuff that we're doing and it kind of lifts me up a little bit. I mentioned that I really like training a diverse group of students. And one of the things that has been allowing us to do that is trying to make this field school more affordable. And that's another reason I'm really glad to be here, is because that's a big priority for this institution as well. When I was a field school TA back in the late 90s, the ASU field school cost a couple $100. It was very inexpensive. But now field schools start at about $4,000 for the most part. They're very expensive. There's a lot of reasons for that I don't have time to get into, but they're expensive now, and that can leave a lot of people out. So finding ways to help diverse students attend these programs and get into archaeology and then continue in archaeology has been really important to us. We were fortunate for 8 of the 10 years that I've been here to have funding from the National Science Foundation. They have a program that's called Research Experiences for Undergraduates, and it basically funds the student parts of these projects so that it's affordable for people to come to. And that's been really great. We've been able to teach a lot of great students. We've been able to get students from all kinds of underrepresented groups, different ethnic groups, different backgrounds, students who are the first in their family to go to college, students from small colleges and community colleges that might not have a big archaeology department or might not have any archaeology at all. We've been able to get a lot of great students through these kinds of opportunities. And then last year, the Whitaker family and some other Archaeology Southwest donors made this possible. They really helped some students attend who wouldn't have been able to otherwise. And we've had a lot of success with this. You can see some of these numbers on this slide, but 70% of those students are still in archaeology. They're doing all different kinds of things, but part of that is when they're with us, they get to see different kinds of archaeology than they've heard about in the classroom. Some of our students don't really necessarily want to become professors, but that's all that they've ever seen. The only archaeologists they know are professors. But when they come out with us, they meet visitors who have all kinds of different specialties in the field, like geoarchaeology or paleoethnobotany or all kinds of things that they've maybe never heard of. And then they work with our staff members, some of whom work mostly in cultural resource management and love it, and some of whom work for the Forest Service and love it. And they see that there's all these different career paths open to them that they might not have known about before. So we're not only teaching a diverse group of students, but we're helping more people get into this field and stay in it because they see more opportunities that are open to them. So that's one of the things that I really love about this. Another thing that I really enjoy is that I'm not just out there teaching them a list of skills. I think sometimes when the students first get there, they think they're going to like check items off a list that they've learned to do, and this will make them employable. But we really get them involved in research that we're doing, and so we're all doing research together, and we're all learning new things about the past together. Our previous field school, we did survey, experimental archaeology, lab work, and excavation. And our excavation was in sites that have been impacted by heavy mechanical equipment and things like that. And we focused on understanding a time period when people moved from Northeast Arizona down into the Mogollon region, the Upper Gila Valley, and they lived with people who had been there before them. So we have migrants basically coming from Northeast Arizona and moving into the Mogollon area. And at first it looked like people were a little tense about that situation, as happens when you have migration often among humans. But after a generation or two, people kind of worked it out. And they came up with a new ideology, a new set of ceramics with different symbolism on it, things like that that let everyone live together. So people were still free to show that they had ancestry that was mostly Mogollon or ancestry that was mostly Northeast Arizona through items that were in their houses. But they also had this bigger idea that unified them so they could all live together and they weren't having some people disenfranchised or living in a different way because of who their ancestors had been. So that research is really interesting to our students too, and when they found things that showed these kinds of heritage, they would get really excited because they knew that what they did every day was contributing to this bigger question. We've moved recently, starting last summer, to a model where the students do experimental archaeology with Alan Denoyer. He's actually over there. Experimental archaeology, and they do lab work and they do survey, but instead of excavating, they work with a museum collection. We started working at the Western New Mexico University Museum on a collection from a field school from the 70s, 800 boxes of artifacts, many of which were never analyzed. We moved them into curation quality plastic bags and things like that. They learned cataloging, but they also did research on some of these items from the boxes that hadn't been studied before. And what we're interested in with that project is understanding how villages in Southwest New Mexico in the classic mid-brace period worked socially. We can see that there are all these houses together, and there are sort of clusters of houses that make a super household group or a cluster of houses within the village. So there's like people's individual homes, there's the big village level, and there's this kind of in-between level that's groups of houses working together. And archaeologists have suggested that there's differences between those household groups in terms of like, do they have access to specific ritual spaces? Or did they have access to certain kinds of knowledge? Did they have access to different field areas, things like that? And we're investigating this question by looking at the things in the rooms in all of those household clusters to see what are the differences between these subgroups of people. What do they do differently? What do they do the same? And how are people going about this process of focusing on different things within the village, again, in a way that doesn't seem to lead to big status differences or big differences in how big your house is or what kind of food you get and things like that. So that research too has been really fun because the students are not only learning to identify pottery, for example, but they're learning like what that means and they're applying that to actual research questions that we're all studying. So I really love getting to teach that way. It's really different than other kinds of teaching can be. And then the third thing I love about teaching field schools is that I get to see students have these amazing experiences and really grow and change. It's been really, really fun. Some of the students that we have, especially people from underrepresented groups, a lot of these students have never been like out of their home state. For some of them, when they come to field school, it's their first time flying in an airplane. And then they get here and they're with a diverse group of people they've never met and would maybe never have picked to work with. And they're in a really different environment. And they learn a lot of things about themselves. So I could tell stories about all of these people in these pictures, but one I'm gonna pick out, Selena Soto in the upper corner with the fire hat. She came on our field school and she hated being outside. She's like, she's camping every night. She's like, I hate bugs, I hate tents, I hate being dirty, I hate being hot. She hated everything, but she worked really hard and she did a really good job. And by the end of the summer, she kind of realized she didn't hate it anymore. So she became an archaeologist, she worked for the Forest Service, and then she had stopped hating outside so much that she became a wildland firefighter. And she has fought fires, she's been in the Grand Canyon, she's worked in Alaska, she's been all over the place doing this really tough job outside. So she went from this woman who hated being outside and hated bugs to being basically much, much tougher than me. These are the kinds of reasons that I like to teach field school a lot. I get to work with all these great students, I get to learn all these great things with them, and I get to watch them grow and change. Some of them go into archaeology, but some of them become like teachers or research librarians or all of these different things. And to me, teaching field schools is a way that I help make the future better for everybody. It's getting better for archaeology because we have people in archaeology who have a lot of different backgrounds, and then they have different ideas and they can interpret what we see in different ways, and they think of things that I would never think of because they come from a different place than I do. And we're working on questions together that help all of us. For example, how to understand how people from different places can live together in a peaceful way without getting to resent each other and finding things in common instead. And when I'm feeling a little bit down about whatever it is out there in the universe, I kind of think about these are some things that I'm doing that actually make the future better. And that's why I keep doing this. So thank you to everybody who's helped make this possible, especially the National Science Foundation. Our RU program is great. The U of A Foundation, which has helped fund a lot of our students, and the Whichkers and other donors who've let some of these great, great students have the opportunity to attend these programs.
My name is Shannon Cowell. I'm the BIA Collaboration Director and a Preservation Archaeologist here at Archaeology Southwest. And I want to share with you a problem that I think is experiencing a resurgence in recent years because of political, social changes, and social media. Theft, vandalism, looting, and even grave robbing are widespread, pervasive issues all across the country. I'm part of a collective of archaeologists and law enforcement allied with tribes to help address these issues and protect cultural heritage. Our purpose is to eliminate archaeological resource crime from tribal lands, which is obviously no small feat. And we really want to change the culture, change how people think about these issues, and remind folks that looting is not a victimless crime. There are living Indigenous communities connected to these places who deserve justice and really have ongoing relationships to place and the past. Tribal lands deserve special attention and focus for many reasons. There are a few systemic issues that make investigating archaeological resource crime really challenging. There are systemic underfunding issues. It's not prioritized. It's not often included in people's job descriptions. So a lot of times cases just fall through the cracks. And field investigations can be really challenging. Damage can be really ephemeral. Evidence can be damaged by weather or other kind of effects. So you've got to get the right people out on the land at the right time to investigate. It's pretty challenging. You've got to connect a person to an act to a place. And there are also a couple challenges and opportunities that are unique to tribal lands. Jurisdiction can be super complicated. Oftentimes, when I work with law enforcement, we have to figure out whose jurisdiction the land is under, who has authority to investigate, and that slows the process down and can be really problematic. And I want to call attention to the murdered and missing Indigenous peoples crisis because it's about a lot of the same issues. It's also kind of ignored, cases fall through the cracks, and both are really about bodily autonomy, people's right to have justice. It also causes direct harms to tribal nations. It's a public safety issue. A lot of times suspects have criminal records already. They're involved in domestic violence or drugs. And that really makes places less safe. There are living communities living on tribal lands too, which makes it different from other federal lands like Park Service land, Forest Service land. And these acts disrupt people's connections to place, traditions and ceremonies that happen at specific places, and they disrupt ancestral resting places too. So again, cultural heritage is a human right. So we provide assistance in crime detection and response. We monitor 27 sites here in Arizona on 3 different tribal nations. We also help people set up trail cameras and create monitoring programs. We also facilitate community reporting on our website, savehistory.org, and we have a tip line where we route any tips from the public to authorities, and we get several tips every month. It's kind of disturbing how many tips we get, and a lot of them are really relevant. We also provide investigation support. We work really closely with the Bureau of Indian Affairs Cultural Resource Unit. So we're developing those relationships with law enforcement and tribes all over the United States. We get requests directly from tribes. We've been to Washington, Oklahoma, Alaska over the last year, and we provide damage assessment assistance. So we document damage and we calculate costs and values, and that becomes part of the case jacket that's presented to a prosecutor or solicitor. We do a lot of training. This is really fun. This is my favorite part of the job by far, because you get a bunch of people from diverse backgrounds, tribal nations, federal agencies, archaeologists, law enforcement, all together in a room to share their knowledge and network. And that makes all the difference because then you know who to call when something happens. So we've done 9 40-hour trainings, and we've done several one-day trainings, webinars over the last couple of years as well. We've trained over 300 people from 25 different tribal nations and 8 different federal and state agencies. So it's becoming really widespread, and we have 4 trainings scheduled for next year as well. I want to call out Ashley Thompson. She led the creation of the Save Indigenous History activity book for children. It's become really popular. We get a ton of requests from tribes, from libraries, from other departments at tribal nations to get copies of this and distribute them to kids. It kind of guides kids through visit with respect principles. And also we hired 5 Indigenous artists to create and illustrate the book. So it's become really popular. We've got a free download if you're interested. And if you can help us connect to people who might be interested in this, we would love to give them some copies. This is brand new. It just went up on Friday, actually. We worked with San Felipe Pueblo to develop the language in the billboard. This replaced a previous billboard that we had put in about 5 or 7 years ago. And that billboard had demonstrable positive effects on sites nearby. It really deterred people from pulling off the highway and checking them out. So this is right off I-25, and you can check it out next time you drive up that way. And that's our 1833 NLUT is our tip line as well. We do a lot of site restoration and protection efforts. We've helped put up fences and signs at sites. This is a backfilling project we did at the Romero site, which is just northwest of town, up at Catalina State Park. Just backfilling, we made it a training exercise with Gila River Indian Community's Cultural Resource Management Program. So we were able to clean up the site, make it look a little better, which helps, prevent future damage. It's a proactive way to prevent things because it makes it so people might think it's normal if they see a hole open like this and be curious and dig their own holes. But backfilling kind of deters that. This was also another project we did last year. We cleaned up graffiti at a really important petroglyph site. We worked with the Hopi tribe and the Navajo Nation, as well as Gila River Indian Community's Cultural Resource Program. We cleaned up a bunch of spray paint graffiti. We also worked with a couple folks from Hopi Ancestral Lands Crew, which is a youth organization that cleans up sites on federal and tribal lands. They also do a lot of trail maintenance. And it was really cool to clean this up all together as a group from multiple tribes, our organization as well, and kind of witness the Hopi youth connect with the Hopi Historic Preservation Office and learn about that place and connect to it. It was a really cool experience for everyone, I think. So I want to leave you with a couple calls to action because I think this problem is so pervasive, it really requires a community response. Learn visit with respect principles. Even if you think you know them, sometimes things change. We've got more Indigenous perspectives in these kind of principles now. So I encourage you to go to our website and check that out. Report suspicious activity, see something, say something. If people don't report these things, they don't get addressed, they fall through the cracks. And our website, again, has an avenue for reporting things through a web form. And also talk to your friends and families about this issue. I think people kind of glamorize looting still in a lot of different communities. We need to talk to people and make sure they understand that this is a human right and it's a really pervasive issue. And I encourage you to visit savehistory.org. Thank you for your time today.
So my colleagues are seasoned presenters, and I am not. I am a seasoned wordsmith and a seasoned mover of commas. So and I haven't given a PowerPoint since 1999, and it's gonna show, okay? So bear with me, my kid and I were talking in the car, and we decided I'm just gonna lean into the awkward, so here we go. All right, we've been doing some shows of hands around here. Who knows what this is? Who remembers, right? I was like, if you don't raise your hand, okay. So this is the first issue of Archaeology in Tucson. That's the OG magazine. And Shannon has some of our, I have one replica, an artifact, and a couple of visual aids that we can pass around. And even though that's a replica of the first edition, be very careful. It's from the sacred Linda Pierce binders that she's been keeping for 25 years. So even the replica is important. So here we are. 4 pages, one of which was a mailing surface. It was folded, right, Bill? And he wrote the whole thing. And it was Tucson-based and focused, right? And in addition to the work that y'all were doing, you invited contributors from other firms, from other universities. Okay. So this, even when we became the Center for Desert Archaeology, and originally it was the Institute for American Research, this lived on for 12 more years. And then, in its 13th year, Archaeology in Tucson became Archaeology Southwest. And now we're looking like a magazine with a masthead, right? And in this volume year, I believe this is when Toby Taylor and Emily Mead came on board. And Toby was a freelance editor, and Emily was the designer and also an editor. And they really set the tone for what this publication has become. They made sure that it was written so that anyone could read it, that there were no citations. You know, it was meant to be a tool for members and for people to come to understand this region and the cultural history here and heritage. This year also saw the addition of Bill's Backsite column. And Bill's Backsite column has always linked the themes of that particular issue of the magazine, any particular issue of the magazine, with Archaeology Southwest's mission. So those are really a nice archive of living statements. And this was the first volume year, correct me if I'm wrong, where we had color photography. And I think it was actually an aerial by Adriel Heisey. And for those of you who don't know, Adriel Heisey is a longtime collaborator of ours and Bill's. And he is an aerial photographer. He went up in like an ultralight, and then he had a different little plane. And he would take beautiful images of cultural landscapes and archaeological sites. We've done exhibitions with him. He's just, I can't say enough good things about his images and what they've brought to the magazine. Okay, this one I'm not gonna call an artifact because this is when I became the editor, and so, yeah, and Emily and Toby aren't here, so. This was not the first issue I did. I actually came on board with the magazine in 2010, and what this represents is we rebranded in 2012. And so the magazine had not been called Magazine, although we affectionately even still call it The Magazine. It was called Archaeology Southwest, remember? And so when we rebranded from the Center for Desert Archaeology and became Archaeology Southwest, we had to change the name a little. So we added magazine. Smart, right? And when we rebranded with our consultants, and they worked with a designer, and so we kind of visually rebranded across the board. And so this is the first issue of the magazine in the new brand. And it's carrying forward that, you know, we've got content on the cover. We added that cute little table of contents, and we thought we were so clever. And then a friend of Bill's said to him, "That doesn't look like a magazine." And he's like, "Oh, man." Okay, so, but we really loved this issue. We were so proud of it, and we love that picture of all these folks. It's a historic photograph of people at Mesa Verde looking up in wonder and awe. I still love that picture. Okay, so the very next issue. Now you see what we're becoming. We have a real cover. Of course, it's an aerial. Is that a Henry Wallace? Adriel. It's Adriel? Okay. Sunset Crater. And now we've got a real table of contents. So now we're in the big leagues. And what, I've never said this to Bill before, but once we went to this format, and then shortly thereafter, Kathleen Bader came on board as design, and this kind of unleashed the beast. I'm like, go big or go home. Right? So I have more articles, more pages, more regional coverage, more voices. Just let's go there, right? Beautiful photography, big splashy images, full bleeds, as Kathleen likes to say. And so this sort of started that era of what we've become. All right, this is the new issue. We brought it here today so that any of you who don't have it can take it home or take some from your friends. And I want to make 2 points here. And the first is, as some of you know, because we've probably talked to you, Steve has us going through a process called appreciative inquiry. And so each of us on staff has reached out to a number of people who have relationships with the organization, and we've interviewed them to find out what they value about us, what we do best. And so then we all reconvened and got together in a room with some facilitators, and sure enough, every single person brought back the fact that everyone loves the magazine. Everyone loves the magazine. And I almost fainted. You can see my hands shaking even just saying it, like, okay, no pressure. Okay, I thought I was just moving comments around, okay. Now, one of the people that I interviewed is Nicole Croft. And years ago, about, what would it have been, 2015, 2016, Nicole Croft was then the executive director of Grand Staircase Escalante Partners, which is the friends group that helps the BLM run Grand Staircase Escalante National Monument. And we were at a gathering of the Conservation Lands Foundation, where all of these kinds of friends groups and people like Archaeology Southwest come. And Bill and I brought an issue we had done with Ari Barillo and Ben Bellarato, an issue we'd done about the Bears Ears. We knew that Bears Ears was under threat, and we did an issue explaining to people what this place means and sharing how people value it. And Nicole, we passed it out, and Nicole and her staff came up to Bill and I and said, we want one of those. So Bill and I looked at Ari, and he said, I'm game. And we all did a road trip, and we went to the towns in and around and on the monument at Grand Staircase Escalante. And we interviewed BLM archaeologists. We talked to community members. We talked to some famous restaurant owners and chefs. We talked to people who did genealogy. We talked to paleontologists that I already did. We talked to all kinds of people in that community and put together a beautiful issue of the magazine. And the cover is a photo by our friend Jonathan Bailey. And so this is what we did with Nicole. And Nicole in this interview says to me, Kate, I don't think you realize what this platform really is, what you have in Archaeology Southwest Magazine, what you all are doing. It is unique. It is unique in this world, not only because you're hearing from the people doing the work. It is not filtered through anyone but me. And like I say, I just kind of move comments around and explain archaeological terms in parentheses. But she said, you know, you're not only hearing it from the people, you're hearing it from community members. You've amassed all these different perspectives onto this platform, and you make it understandable and readable. And Kate, that issue made a difference. And I'm looking at Ari because he hasn't heard this yet. She said, Kate, we brought that magazine to DC. We put it out all over our community. We sold it everywhere we could sell it, and it made a difference. It was the first time all that information about what this science monument is was all in one place, and people got it. And I was like, okay, Nicole, I have to go lie down now. Thank you for the interview. So it brings me to the second point. I think it is not hubris to say that what this publication has always done is educate, advocate, and empower, right? And I think that this is really well represented in this latest issue of the magazine. What this is we went through a strategic planning process, and we knew we needed to get better at collaborating with tribes, with other descendant communities, with our own communities. And so we were trying to come up with a theme for Archaeology Cafe that year, and Bill said, well, let's figure out who else is collaborating out there on the landscape and talk to them, get their perspectives and have them come do cafes. We then turned that into a magazine. We added some extra features. The feedback on this issue is amazing. This issue of the magazine, as you'll see, it's talking about different kinds of tribal collaborations with archaeologists. It's talking about community collaborations with archaeologists. It's talking about the descendants of Chinese railroad workers and archaeologists. And it is now being used in classrooms. People love this edition. And what I kind of want to say almost in closing is, to me, that is the mission, spirit, and vision of the magazine. My personal belief is that the future of archaeology is community-driven. And to the extent that this publication continues to show that, and at least under my watch will continue to do so, I think that's important. I think that's really important, and I thank you all. Now, I have some thank yous, and I want to actually read so that I don't screw it up. Oh, here's the reveal. I forgot the big reveal. Okay, so next issue is Mesa Verde, and great photograph by my friend John Porter. He's on the East Coast, so he wasn't able to be here today. And you can see we've done a slight redesign. Until now, it was only me, Bill, Kathleen, and Donna Glowacki, who's the issue editor, who'd seen this. And so we don't have the masthead, and I can talk to you all afterwards about why that is, and I'm actually gonna do a blog post about it, so make sure you're subscribed to our monthly email, because that's where that's gonna come out. It's largely around merchandising, so anyway, isn't that exciting? Woo! Okay, all right, now I'm gonna read from my phone, because I can't screw this up, okay? I can't screw it up. All right, I not only stand on the shoulders of greats, some of whom are here today, but I'm also, obviously holding hands with people I'm still working with. And I inherited this cherished trust from my personal mentors, Toby Lopez Taylor and Emily Mead, who with others shepherded a newsletter to a magazine and, like I said, built that brand over the course of a decade. They couldn't be here today, and I wanted to honor them before you. All right, to many of you, she needs no introduction other than her name, the great Catherine Gilman. Map maker extraordinaire, master of visualizing complex information. Happy retirement, I'm not over it yet. Artist and archaeologist Rob Chacho. Rob. His sensitive and globally sought after visualizations breathe life into the past in a dynamic and respectful way, and they always include dogs. So go back to past issues and find the dogs. It's like, where's Waldo, right? Okay, Jonathan Bailey. Jonathan there in the pink. Jonathan Bailey, conservation photographer and author, whose outstanding and compelling images stand alongside Adriel Heise's and Henry Wallace's aerials as a magnificent way of conveying people's stories in and on the land. Thank you. Next up, my brother of the heart, archaeologist, author, humanist, polymath, Ari Barillo, who over the past near decade has guest edited some of our most popular issues and continues to do so. He's on the dogs issue, and he and Jonathan are cooking up a plants issue. Kathleen Bader, our amazing designer, my sister of the heart, my work bestie, even though she's now a freelancer. Cracked Earth Creative, y'all, you need a designer. There she is. My longtime partner in conveying our message, mission, and vision in this. And her work with all of us at Archaeology Southwest is still very much a living thing. And finally, my kid, Eleanor, who's done a great job of raising herself while I did all this work, and who told me in the car today, don't make the Doctor Who joke. Thanks, everybody.
Kate Sarther is amazing. One of her talents that she won't tell you about, but that I will, has to do with that photograph. If she's with you for 3 minutes, she will identify the Muppet that you are. And you can deny it and you're gonna be wrong, okay? So John Welch doesn't come across easily as a Muppet. He's not exactly Muppet-like. And yet Kate came up with a Muppet for John Welch. It's on YouTube, I'll share it with you in private. But she got John Welch, didn't she? She got you? Yeah, hard to deny. It's hard to deny. All right, in closing, folks, before we have Shannon and Karen and Kate come up for Q&A, that is a really cool photograph of Gillespie Dam that Rick Wicker took when we were out in the field a couple weeks ago. Dams are interesting structures because they're bridges, they're retention walls, they are artifacts, they are stylistic things, they're all kinds of stuff. They're metaphors, I suppose. But you know what, folks, just got to be straight with you. We're in the mode just like National Public Radio is. We are listener supported. And if you all like what you've heard today or want to support us in any way, shape, or form, we could greatly, greatly use your support. It's been so instrumental for this organization for so long already. We would love to see it happen for another 50 years going forth. That's the end of that one. Corey didn't teach me how to make the pitch, so that's all I got. Anyway, Kate, Karen, Shannon, you want to come up and we'll do Q&A for a couple minutes?
So I want to know from Shannon, because I was, unlike Karen and Kate, been here for your tenure at Archaeology Southwest. So I wanted to learn from you, like, what are you doing now that's the biggest surprise compared to what we told you were going to be doing?
That's a great question. It's strange. I feel like I do very little archaeology, which has been something to adapt to. Like I'm learning a lot about the law. doing a lot of program management, doing a lot of outreach and education, like trying to think back to when I was a beginner and how people learn has been really challenging. So every day is unique. I really like that. And I'm excited to get out in the field in a couple weeks and be an archaeologist again.
This is for Karen. What is your plan for the field school next year?
We are going to go back to WNMU and help the museum out again. I think I mentioned in the talk there's 800 boxes from that field school collection, and we got through a quarter of them. And it's really helped the museum a lot. There were a lot of things in the boxes that had been put there by accident that should have been in the NAGPRA area, and we took them out. There were bags that were like exploding, and we rescued the information on them. So we were really excited that we got through about a quarter of it, and I'm very much looking forward to doing the whole thing. So I think we're gonna have 3 more years out there. You won't see it on the website yet because we live in the dorms at WNMU, and a very important event at the WNMU is a mariachi festival. And we have to make sure that our dorm reservation begins after the mariachi festival ends, but that we leave before they close the cafeteria for cleaning. So hopefully in another week or so, I'll have exact dates and we can update the website with the field school information. But we're planning on going back for 3 more years and finishing taking care of that collection and learning from it.
Something that Karen might not say that I'll pipe up and say is that it really is an amazing field school. And Karen and company have done a terrific, terrific job. I've been involved in trying to, run field schools and corral kids and get them to pay attention in the field forever and ever. And there's just no better place for students to go. So anybody that does know anybody looking to be an archaeologist, Karen's the ticket.
Hi, I'm a big fan of the Archaeology Southwest Magazine. I really enjoy seeing what's going on in the archaeology that you're working with. I had always kind of been wondering, the individual articles tend to be very short and focused. I was wondering if there is any, consideration of working with the University of Arizona at all to bring, grad students in to write, a guest section about their work to both kind of get perspectives on ongoing work at the university that's going on in the world of archaeology, and get sort of more students involved with Arc Southwest, because I know that's something that is often encouraged that we do.
Sure. Bill and I have, and now me alone, have sort of tightened up the process for magazines. And what happens, and I can share this out with you later, is someone will propose an issue, and they'll kind of start to gather who they think their contributors are. And so we actually do have graduate students writing in the magazine. And that kind of comes from a grassroots, not from my top down. And once, and we could do this again, Bill and Toby did an issue that was with Jeff Clark, and it was the next generation of archaeologists, and it solely featured graduate students. So that's something we can revisit. I now remember what my earlier thought was. So I've been with the company for 17 years now, and still, it's the biggest thrill to me when people put that they wrote for the magazine on their CV. So we love it. Come and get us. Okay.
It was really hard to retire from this place, but to see the kind of creative directions that Steve is taking things, to see these wonderful performances today is really makes my heart beat proudly and really broadly. And I think that the direction of the field school going towards an even more kind of focused approach to preservation archaeology, the way in which Shannon has, Shannon was hired for a pretty low-level job, and she has grown into a leadership role, which is really, really impressive. Kate is, she's the most amazing editor anyone could ever work with, and it's just beautiful to see this kind of performance today. So again, I just want to put my heart out to these employees and all the rest of the folks at Archaeology Southwest. So Steve, you've got a good crew to work with.
Thanks, Bill.
Thank you, Bill. On that note, let's adjourn and continue the conversations as we want individually, but thank you so much, Bill. Thank you, Linda. Thank you, everybody, for coming this afternoon, and we'll see you next year.
Yeah.